Welcome to My Real Life, Episode 2. I'm Buddy1927, Real Life Buddy Walter. And today I am here to talk to you about how and why I became a volunteer firefighter and EMS worker and why I did it for over 30 years. Well, when I was growing up, we moved around a lot. But when I was, I guess what they will call my informative years, we lived in Massachusetts, in a town called Beverly, Massachusetts. And at the time, my mother was a full-time nurse working at Beverly Hospital. My father was going to seminary at Borden College in Quincy, Massachusetts, which is outside of Boston. And he was also working a full-time job as an associate pastor for the Church of Nazarene in Beverly, Massachusetts. And for the pastor of that church was actually Reverend Jim Baker, not the Reverend Jim Baker that killed all those people, but actually ended up being a lifelong family member of our family. So while my father was going to college full-time and working full-time, he wasn't home as much as he would like to have been. And with my mother also working full-time, both me and my sister, we would go to school during the day and come home. Luckily, my father's office was also in the house, so you could kind of keep an eye, but there was times where he had to be at school, so he wasn't home all the time. The church secretary was there, so she kind of kept an eye on us at the house and stuff like that. But during the summertime, we spent a lot of time with my mother's parents, my grandparents, Norman and Dorothy Scherer. They lived in a town called Concord, Massachusetts. And if you don't know what Concord, Massachusetts is famous for, then you need to learn your American history. This is where the American Revolutionary War started, at the North Bridge, where the shot that was fired that was heard around the world. But we've spent a lot of time with my grandparents when I was younger. And my grandfather and my Uncle David were both on-call firefighters for the town of Concord, Massachusetts. So when we would stay at my grandparents' house, anytime there was a fire call, either my uncle or my grandfather would take me on these calls with them. And I would get to see what they do at the fire ground, get to see at the fire scene and stuff like that. My grandfather would take me to the fire station, show me the fire truck. They actually had a pole. I got to slide several times up and down the pole. And Concord actually had an ambulance in their fire station. It was a Cadillac ambulance, and also the local funeral home also had an ambulance. They utilized the hearse also as an ambulance if needed. So this is back in the 70s, guys. Not like today. Ambulances were utilized for more than one thing, and back then you didn't have to be EMT. All you had to be was have basic first aid. My grandfather was a instructor, AMT instructor for the state of Massachusetts. He was also a fire instructor he helped train in the fire department and stuff like that, and so did my uncle. But I learned a lot this growing up. And also at the time, in 1972, this TV series started called Emergency. It was about the two paramedics, two firefighter paramedics, and I said that's what I'm going to end up being one day. So, as time went by, my father graduated from seminary. He had his first church in Reading, which is outside of Boston, outside of Beverly. And then we kept moving around from time to time. And when I was 16, we were living in a town called Frederick, Maryland. My father was pastor of the Church of Nazarene there in Frederick, and the fire district we lived in um, was the Independent Hose Company's fire district, which was Frederick County Station 1, the oldest fire station, the oldest fire department in the state of Maryland. It was organized in 1818, and it's also still in the top 10 of the oldest firefighters in the United States, fire department in the United States. Well, they had this junior fire program. Um, they had this junior fire program. In at the age of 16, you become a junior firefighter. Now, what a junior firefighter does is, on the fire grounds, you get to be the gopher. You go for this and you go for that. You just run your butt off. But they also train you to become a firefighter. I started and had completed University of Maryland Fire Rescue Institute's what they call basic firefighting, which made me a certified firefighter level 1, 2, and 3. I also, at the age of 17, became a EMT, but because I was not 18 at the time, I could not practice being an EMT. I still could not practice being a firefighter, even though I graduated and had all the classes and did all that until I turned 18. So after I got my EMT, I also started. There was other classes in the state at the time in the state of Maryland. There was 3 certification levels. The highest was paramedic. The second highest was cardiac rescue technician, and bottom where you start off was EMT basic. And from the EMT basic, after you graduate and get your certification as an EMT basic, then you learn what you call rocker arms, where you can learn IV and drug therapy, EOA and master trousers certification. I'm sorry, I did this backwards. First, you learn your EOA and mass trouser. What EOA stands for is esophageal airway, where you put a tube down the person's throat, down the esophagus, and a little balloon blows up and secures the airway. And mass trousers were anti-shock. They're called anti-shock trousers now, and they're not actually used that much in the field anymore. But I was certified in that. Then the next step was what they call IV and IV therapy. And IVs is where you start an IV in somebody's arm, and different fluids that you could use. Back then we could use normal saline, which has 0.9% salt, which is equivalent to the human body's salt content, so the body would absorb it a lot easier. You had lactated ringers, or we called it ringers, which had special bonds and stuff like that, and the other one was D5W, which had sugar, which is basically sugar water. Those were the 3 types of IV solutions that we could do. And then your next class was drug therapy, which you were allowed to do certain drugs, and you also learned intubation, where you stick a tube down somebody's, instead of the esophagus, you actually stick a tube down the trachea, and you control their airway that way with a tube down their lungs and breathe them. That's the most secure way. So before I turned 18, I took all these classes. So when I turned 18, I was actually a step above a lot of EMT basics. So I was fine. I turned 18 on October 15th, 1982. And about 10 days, that made me a certified firefighter and a certified EMT, and also a little bit more advanced EMT. And about 10 days, it was actually, I remember the date, it was October 25th. It was during the day. I was off. I wasn't working that day. I was hanging out at the fire station waiting for a call, because I still hadn't Still had not what we call broke the cherry on my fire calls yet, and we got toned out to what they call a second duty ambulance call. Basically, what a second duty ambulance call was, there's no ambulance available, and at that time, Frederick City only had 2 paid ambulances, and both of them were out. Now, they also had what they call second duty, where the volunteers would come and get the second ambulance and come out and do that. Now, this was during a weekday. I forget what day of the week it was, but it was during a weekday when we got toned out. And both ambulances were tied up on other calls, and they went ahead and dispatched an engine company on second duty calls in the city. And now, Independent Hose Company is a city county fire station, so they responded to city calls. They also responded to county calls. So anytime there was a second duty call in the city, they would tone out an engine company to assist and stabilize the patient until the ambulance got there, which was no problem. So I went ahead and checked in around engine 11 with an EMT on board, and we get to the scene. It's an 18-year-old girl, same age as me. This was her second child, and water has broken, traction's about 1 every 2 seconds, and I'm going, please Lord, let the ambulance check en route shortly. So I'm assessing the patient. I hear the ambulance check en route about 5 minutes after we got on scene. It felt like a weight was just lifted off my shoulder, because this is my first EMS call, and also my first fire call at the same time. But this was my first EMS call, and she is in full labor, and I'm like, okay, she's gonna have this baby any time now. I hear the ambulance check on scene. I'm like, great, thank God. All of a sudden, I hear this voice talking to one of the firefighters, actually talking to the engineer on our truck, saying, who's your EMT? And he said, well, he's inside with the patient right now. Oh, good, he's my EMT. Oh, great. So he sticks his head in and said, are you the EMT? I said, yeah, well, you're now the EMT for my ambulance. I'm like, okay. I said, what are you? He said, oh, I'm just a firefighter. I just got the ambulance because nobody responded. And I heard that y'all had an EMT on the scene, so I went ahead and responded with the ambulance. Now, back then, this is 82, guys. Been a while. It's been over 30 years now. But back then, you didn't have to be an EMT to drive an ambulance. All you had to do was be a firefighter in that department to take the ambulance out. As long as there was a EMT on scene, a firefighter could drive the ambulance to the scene, so the EMT can have all the materials and stuff like that. And I went, oh, great, okay. I said, do you know where the equipment is on the truck? Oh, yeah, I know where the equipment is. I said, well, get me the OB kit and get me the IV kit, and bring me some oxygen. So he went out to the truck, and I went ahead and contacted the doctor. Back then, we didn't have what today is called protocols. We couldn't start an IV. We could put the patient on O2, but we couldn't do anything else other than take vitals and stuff like that. We couldn't do anything else unless we had doctor's orders. So we had to contact the hospital. So I used their telephone to call the hospital, and I called the ER at Frederick Memorial, and this woman answers the phone. It's my mother. My mother at the time was the head nurse of the Frederick ER. And I said, this is EMT Walter. I'm on scene of a 18-year-old female's second delivery, and she is currently in labor and she is crowning. I need a doctor. And it's my mother. And my mother's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be at the fire station. What are you doing on an ambulance call? They don't even have an ambulance at your fire station. I'm like, Mom, this is a second duty ambulance call. We were dispatched. Our engine was dispatched. They didn't have an EMT, so they brought the ambulance to me. I'm the only EMT on the scene. Get me a doctor now. Well, the doctor's coming, but we're not going to we're not finished talking about this. You're not supposed to be on there. You're supposed to be at the fire station, not on an ambulance. Mom, just give me the doctor. So the doctor gets on there, and I said, this is EMT Walter on EMS 28. Tell him what's going on. He said, oh, hey buddy, how are you? I went, yeah. All the doctors knew me then because my mother was the head nurse of the ER, and when I did my EMT training, I did a lot of clinical work at the ER, and I also helped out at the ER from time to time. So all the doctors knew me. And the doctor said, okay, you are IV certified. I said, yeah, I am IV certified. Okay, go ahead. Start. You got the patient on O2? Oh, yeah, I got her on 4 liters O2 right now. Crowning, I got the OB kick out. The doctor went ahead and told me, go ahead and start an IV. Normal, actually, Ringer's lactating. Because when a woman has a baby, she loses a lot of fluid, a lot of blood can happen and stuff like that. Well, needless to say, the delivery went flawless. And thank God. I did not deliver the baby. The mother delivered the baby. All I was there was to assist and to give comfort and any medical aid that might need. There was what they call a blood. And luckily, since I had the IV already established, blood pressure didn't drop and all that. It was a beautiful baby girl. I was actually honored by the mother. She wanted to know what my name was. She said, your name's Buddy. I said, yeah, well, what's your real name? I said, Robert Walter. She said, okay. And she named the baby Roberta. So, I have a child out there that's not mine, but has my name. And if you happen to be watching this, I'm glad that you are still alive and still thriving. But it was a healthy baby girl. We loaded mom and the baby into the ambulance and went to the hospital. Got to the ER, went to the room. Doctor checked out the baby, checked out the mom, checked my IV. He said, you did an excellent job. You did a perfect IV. You treated the patient perfectly. It's like you've been doing this for years. I said, oh, good. Well, thank you, Doc. Well, that's the good news. You want the bad news? I said, well, what's the bad news? Your mother wants to talk to you. I said, oh, am I in trouble? He said, yep, you're in trouble. I went, okay. So I'll go talk to my mom. She starts harassing me because I wasn't supposed to be on an ambulance. I was supposed to be on a fire truck. And then I try to explain to her what happened and how I ended up on the ambulance and all that. And she, after a couple minutes, calmed down and said, oh, okay, I understand now and all that. Well, one thing I will tell you guys and girls who might be watching this video. I am 50 years old. My mother currently is 74 years old. I'm still her little guy. I'm still her little baby. My sister, who's 2 years younger than me, that's still my mother's little girl. So, Brenda and myself are and will always be her children. No matter how old we get, we'll always be her children. So, we'll never grow out of it. Sorry guys, you always will be your parents' little girls and boys. So, one of the reasons why I do and volunteer for, been doing that for over 30 years, was because at that time, over 90% of the firefighters in the United States were volunteers. Actually, still here in the United States, over 70% of the firefighters in the United States are still volunteer. Because it costs a lot of money to run a fire department, the equipment and stuff like that. Plus, this to pay for the manpower. 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It takes a lot of money. So a lot of communities still have to use volunteers because they can afford the equipment, but they can't afford to man the equipment. Now, a volunteer firefighter is not less than a paid firefighter. We have to go through the same training. We have to carry the same certifications. And we just do it. We take our class. We take our time to take these classes and train and stuff like that. We do that all on our own. It doesn't. We take our time. This is Princess. Remember the Princess, the shy camera dog? Yeah. This is Princess, the shy camera dog. She's not as shy as the camera anymore. So. And yes, she will be my little girl no matter how old she gets. You'll always be my little girl, yes. But as a volunteer, I have to spend my time and my money. We don't get benefits. Actually, we have to pay for to get a little retirement check after we serve so many years, and we pay for that ourselves. But we don't get insurance. If we are injured, workman's comp does cover for that. But we could also lose our job doing that. We could also lose our lives volunteering as a firefighter. That is, firefighting is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. So it's also one of the craziest jobs in the world. So that's one thing you gotta realize and remember. Now, damn. So the next time you see a volunteer firefighter, remember, he or she is taking her time or his time out for no gain, no prestige, just to help you out. And for those firefighters and EMS workers, you gotta realize one thing. When you meet people on the scene, they might be crazy, they might think it took forever for you to get there. You gotta remember one thing. You're meeting them in their worst times in their life, and you gotta control your emotions and help calm them down and control their emotions. So remember that, guys. So come here. Come. Okay. So I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Princess would like to thank you for watching this video. If you get a chance on my YouTube video, you get to watch Princess's video. It's called the Shy Camera Dog. Princess and I would like you to like this video. If you do, please like us on YouTube. If you have any comments about this video, please leave your comments down below on the YouTube page down below this video. So, I think if you can, Princess would like you to subscribe to my channel so you can watch the more videos that Princess does. Yes. Okay, settle down, girl. So, please subscribe to our channel. I'd like to thank you again for watching this video, and have a good day.